The first mistake was that men never understood the distinction between what he is to do
outside,
physically and what he is to do inside.
Yeah,
That procedure, which was right outwardly, he carried inwardly without knowing, perhaps entirely ignorant, entirely not knowing that would make trouble.
Is it possible not to accumulate?
Well, if we say that it had this origin, then it should be possible to dismantle it. My knowledge is uncertain, right?
Yes, knowledge is accumulation. In accumulation, man has sought psychological security, and that security, with its accumulation, is the factor of human division, psychologically. Yeah. The harm is it divides. The very nature of accumulation brings about a division between you and me and they and so on. This constant struggle. I have never realized as a human being the accumulative process is a tremendous danger.
Yes, because that seems to be the essence of security.
And I actually perceive the danger of that.
Suppose you accumulate in your way and I accumulate in my way.
And he, she, or he accumulates another way.
And then we try to impose a common way of accumulating. And
which is impossible.
Conflict. That's conflict.
That never takes place.
Each person accumulates in his particular way, which is different from somebody else. You cannot make a common way of accumulating. Desire includes belief and hope. You see, that is, belief amounts to accepting something as correct because you desire it to be so, because otherwise you have no proof, you see. And hope is just simply the belief that what you desire is going to be realized, you see. So all three are one and the same.
The content of consciousness is consciousness.
Yes, but the one mistake is thought tends to think it is not. Thought tends to think that consciousness is the manifestation of a being or an entity who is deeper, thinking correctly, perceiving, and who is also experiencing, and that gives the sense of reality, a reality independent of thought. If all that were not present, then the sensations would not be regarded as all that important by thought. Now, saying I feel bad, it would seem natural. I should feel better, and what can I do to feel better? Of course, if you're ill, you can go to a doctor and so on. But I mean, if you feel bad psychologically, with sorrow and so on, it's not so clear. Thought said, I want to feel better. It anticipated some sort of better feeling and tried to achieve it, you see. And that was desire, right?
Understand, desire.
So thoughts are accepted as correct, which are incorrect, and so you begin to go into distortion and self-deception because it makes the brain feel better. If it can be made so clear that it is deception, if somebody once admits it's deception, I think that he cannot go on with this. We can't go on with desire. I mean, if we do, our society will be destroyed.
As long as there is desire, there is deception, and therefore no solution to society or the individual.
Yeah. You see, thought is now trying to produce a better set of sensations in order to make you feel better. And the only function of the sensations is to give you some factual information. And if thought tries to make them better, they can no longer give you any information. Desire may often be confused with passion.
They said, identify yourself with something greater, compassion.
Yes, but that's still desire.
Of course.
That becomes a self-deception to believe, I believe that I am the same as something greater because I feel better. The root of it is a certain mistake of thought, which is in the wrong area, you see, which is that it is trying to think of the essence of consciousness. This whole structure. It is trying to think that it can do something in that area.
Yes.
As if it were a real being, which had an outside and an inside. The manifestation of a being or an entity who is deeper, who is thinking. There comes a sense of something missing.
Of course.
The apparent perception is not complete. And eventually he feels that he must have the whole, the ultimate.
Deep-rooted instinct
built into us.
For future, for safety.
It's overdone. You have to live in uncertainty in some way. Suppose there's no accumulation, then what?
Then that's the whole point. There is no time.
Mm-hmm.
Attention itself is out of time, but the capacity to have attention may involve time.
It involves growth. Culture. Time is involved to produce a certain capacity. The young child has a different capacity. One thing that happens when the brain begins to see the destructive nature of desire, it begins to think, I would rather not have desire.
Yes.
But it begins to desire a state of non-desire. The desire cannot be controlled because the attempt to control desire is merely one desire resisting another. And desire has this self-deceptive nature that I can desire not to be conscious that I have desire, you see, and therefore that will vanish from my consciousness. You see, desire is so self-deceptive that it deceives itself about its own existence. You know, there may even be a desire, say, to believe that there is no problem.
Desire which cannot be controlled, because the control is part of desire.
And the one who tries to control it is himself controlled by those instructions, do you see?
Quite.
And therefore there's no separation between the controller and the controlled. It's not the same as some external object which can be separated from the brain. And then the whole thing anyway is self-contradictory because that very attempt cannot be kept under control and so on. As long as there's desire, nothing can be done. Because I think if desire enters anywhere, it's going to produce self-deception and it will spread everywhere.
Yes. Can the root of desire be dissipated? Most people think desire is necessary to live. Our conditioning is so strong that desire is part of our necessity to live.
Yes, I mean, otherwise you might just become a vegetable.
If there is no desire, there is nothing. No self-deception. No striving, no achievement, no going or coming. Totally no desire. Therefore, if it has no desire, there is no content. Therefore, it's empty. And therefore, that nothingness is a frightening thing.
Yes, if I'm free of desire, then what will I do? Without desire, then there is room for real passion, genuine passion, and there's no being a vegetable. But rather there's far more energy, because desire wastes tremendous energy because of its contradictory nature. It's always in many directions and it's wasting energy. Yes, I've observed that if you keep on watching desire carefully, you find the energy goes up, you see.
Yes.
There's a major waste of energy. I think that it's only useful to observe, that this does happen, but not to pursue it indefinitely.
I function right. That means a life that is really orderly, righteous, virtuous, unselfish, all that. Then only I can put this question legitimately. Otherwise, I'll use that watching desire, the arising of that energy, use it for mischievous purposes.
Consciousness is all one, and every person has some mixture, you see, of consciousness. And everybody is his own private mixture of the general consciousness. So there is no such thing as an ego which is individual, you see. Every individual is a private mixture of all the ingredients of the general consciousness. That means that consciousness is continually flowing in a stream into and out of each individual. And if there is truth, see, truth, as I say it, is truth in action. That flows into the other person, and it acts.
The man who is without desire affects the total consciousness of human beings.
You see, obviously, if that one man were entirely isolated, it wouldn't actually affect other people. But once he's in contact, that potential effect becomes actual.
What happens to the brain if there is no desire?
The functional center would operate without desire, but just carrying out what it has to do.
I think it's only then that you see what is true.
What you say is correct, truth in action.